Dig with everyone. Okay, in order to understand the story and make it as short as possible, you need to know a few things. First of all, I have two mental disorders. One is generalized anxiety and one is social anxiety. And that's a lot of anxiety stacked up together. Like, life can be quite hard. It's mind-blowing. Secondly, that's three. Secondly, I went to college for theatre and performance. So sometimes I act. So sometimes I go on auditions and do acting things and stuff. And the student filmmaker got in contact with me and asked me to audition for this film. So I said, great, I will do that. The audition happened to be on the south side of Dublin, which is not a place that I frequent often. I don't avoid it, I just don't really have a reason to go there. And I specifically had to go to the university DIT, which, if you don't know, has lots of campuses around the city. It's not all just in one place. But luckily, my sister actually has attended that college, so my dad had a fair idea of what it would look like and where I was going. Because I have to have things pre-planned out, or else I can't do them. My mind has to know where I'm going, what it's going to look like, and like where I'm going to park, or else I can't handle it. So my dad had given me this image of where I was going and what I was doing, and I was like, I got this, I can do it, let's roll on this journey, it's going to be fabulous. I'm driving along and I crossed the Liffey, and now I'm in pretty much no man's land because I've got no fucking idea where I am. I'm just driving along, there's a lot of confusing lanes, things like I may have ran a red light. That's when the part gets more stressful though. I'm driving along, no idea where I am. That's fine. I'm discovering, I'm exploring. If that's a personal inside joke, I did not doesn't matter. So driving, and I get to Ainger Street after a shitload of time, and I have loads of time to the audition, it's fine. My GPS says, you have arrived in your destination. I'm like, great. And I look around, and it looks nothing like what I've been expecting. The street is nothing like what I've been expecting. And I'm like, okay, I'll just drive the street until I find out what I'm doing. That's okay. And the mental image, it never comes. It never comes. The thing that I'm looking for never comes. So then I start to panic because my preset mind thing has control of this anxiety, but then it's nothing like I think it's going to be. So my mind is like, oh my god, what's happening? So it's Dublin City. You can't pull over on the side of the road. There is no place to pull over. So I'm just left driving, and I'm taking all these turns, and I have no fucking idea where I'm going, and I'm just going deeper and deeper into the depths of the city, and I'm like, oh my god, and I end up in Harcourt Street, which I've been to once in my life, and I didn't drive there, my dad drove there, so I had a slight inkling of where I was, but I have no idea how to get to Harcourt Street, and I have no idea how to leave it. So I'm literally just driving, having a crisis of anxiety while driving, trying not to kill anyone and be like, oh my god. So I eventually go down this alleyway, which shady as fuck, and find a place to pull over and have a moment, literally have a moment in the car, being like, oh my god. And so I'm trying to work my GPS, and I'm trying to get to this audition, and there are two young gentlemen outside my car, and I must look like I'm in devastating distress, because I hear them go, do you think we should ask her if she's okay? So I just hold up my phone, and I'm like, just a little bit lost, it's fine, just, I'm gonna put in the, okay. So they're like, oh, okay, and but streams of people just walking by thinking that I'm losing my mind in the car, which is fine. I am losing my mind. So I put in the thing, and I put in, instead of the street, I put in DIT Ainger Street instead of just Ainger Street, and the GPS is like, you could walk there in 5 minutes. And I'm like, yes, I could, GPS, but I will never fucking find my car again, so we're gonna have to drive there. And she's like, we can drive there in 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, let's just go. So we start to drive, and she's like, take this left, but on the map, she's not taking a left, she's going right. So I'm like, do I follow what you say, or follow what you do? Oh, I just don't know. So I follow what she does, and it's wrong. She just hasn't fucking updated by the time we get there. So then I'm lost again. But she's like recalculating, and she recalculates, and she's like, okay, we're going this way. So I'm like, fine. Driving around being like, I don't know where I am, this is weird. So I come up this hill, and there it is. There is the building that I want. I'm like, that's the building that I want. So I just parking spaces outside, and I'm like, everything has worked out for the better. Except GPS is like, no, we still have to keep going. And I'm like, no, this is it. This is what's in my head. This is where we're stopping. You be quiet. I know best. So I pull over and the girl told me to ring her when I get there. You know, part of my social anxiety means that I'm fucking terrified of phones. So I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to ring her. But I'm going to have to ring her. I'm going to be late for this audition. This is awful. So I'm like, okay, you need to calm down. You can pre-think what you're going to say on the phone. It'll be fine. So I do some Harry Potter style stuff and I eat some chocolate to calm down, and then I plan the conversation that I'm going to have with her. I'm like, I'll make a joke. I'll be like, I'm 95% sure that I'm in the right place, just going to put money in the meter. Okay. So I ring her up and I say exactly that. And she says, okay, I'm going to come downstairs to get you. I'm like, fine, perfect. So I go put money in the meter, and then I go inside, and I'm standing around. I'm just standing around, and my phone rings again. I'm like, oh. So I answer the phone, and she's like, where exactly are you? And I'm like, I'm inside the door, like I'm standing in the door. And she's like, okay, is there a cafe beside you? And I'm like, no, there's no. And she says to me, can you describe to me what's around you? And I'm like, walls, because there's nothing there. You just walk it, there's nothing there. It's just an open space of nothingness. And I'm like, do you want me to come outside again? I'll come outside. And she goes, no, I'm in the building. I'm like, okay, she's in the building. She's like, what's outside? And I'm like, there's a car park. I just came right in the door. Like, it's just a door. And she says, okay, I know where you are. So she's coming around to get me, but she stays on the phone with me. So I'm on the phone with a stranger. And it's hard enough being on the phone with not strangers for me. And I'm like, she's like walking, and I'm like, ha. And I'm trying to make jokes, and I don't know if she hears some of them. And then, in the meantime, I might add, my phone must sense that I'm in deep despair with the stranger, because it keeps hanging up on her and ringing my friend, who I ring when I'm in social anxiety distress. And it just keeps doing it. It's like it knows. So she keeps ringing me back, and I'm like, I have no idea why that keeps hanging up on you. This is awful. But every time she rings back, I don't want to answer the phone, but I have to, because it's an audition. So she gets to where she's going, and she's like, I don't see you. And I'm like, I don't see you either. And this happens about 3 times where she thinks that she knows where I am, and I'm like, okay. So then eventually she goes, go outside and tell me the landmarks. So I go out. There's a big red wall. It says love and life on it. There's a block of flats, apartments if you will, and she's like, is there anything else? And I'm like, no, there's cars. So we're like standing there on the phone trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go inside, and there's a security man. I'm gonna ask the security man where I am, and he's gonna tell me it's gonna be fine. She says, okay, great. My phone hangs up on her again. Maybe it knows that I can't deal with talking to 2 strangers at the same time. I walk into this building, and there's no time to prepare what I'm going to say to the security man. There is no time, because I'm walking towards him and he's physically looking at me, and if I stop to think about what I'm going to say to him, he's going to think I'm fucking crazy, which I am. I mean, it's true, but I don't need him to know that. So I'm like, this is going to be a really stupid question. So that's what I say to him when I get to him. I say, excuse me, sir, I'm about to ask you a really stupid question. And he goes, okay. And I say, where am I? And he says, that is a stupid question. And I'm like, I know. And he says, where do you think you are? And I say, DIT Ainger Street. And he says, no. And I'm like, oh. And then he reminds me that it was a stupid question. And he says, you're actually in DIT Kevin Street. And I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? And he's like, I've got good news for you though. And I'm like, okay. He goes, you've got the college right. This is the DIT campus. And I'm like, great. And he says, I've got more good news. Ainger Street is just up the road. So I'm like, oh, thank God. So back in, he gives me the directions. He tells me where to go. And I must look like I won't be able to soak any of this up, because he tells me 3 more times. And then on the 4th time, he's like, so you go up and do the thing and with the thing. And I'm like, okay, I've got this. But see, the thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, with the social anxiety, even when he slows it down and lays it out on the table, I'm not really listening to what he says. All I'm thinking is, oh my God, oh my god, this is awful. I want to be in my room with my books and my Chemical Romance CDs and just disappear forever. So I don't hear fucking any of it. There's like a left and a right somewhere. Okay, fine. So I'm like, thank you, sir, and fly out of there. And then she rings me back, and I'm like, I'm walking up. There's a left and a right, and I'm fine. Walking up where? Diesel, you don't know. So I get to this junction. It's a 4-way junction. There could be a left or a right. There is no, so I'm standing in this junction and I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening? She obviously thinks that I'm going to arrive a lot sooner because she calls me back and she says, unless I hung up on her, I don't know. And she's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm in a junction. And Dublin is full of fucking junctions. Of course you're in a junction. That's no use to anyone. So I'm like, I see a pharmacy. And she's like, okay, that's not helpful. I'm like, I know. And then there's a pub beside me, and I name the pub, and she says, that's the pub. I know that pub, I'm coming down to get you. I'm like, yes, she's coming down to get me. It's fine. Now, any normal person would keep an eye out for the person that was coming to get them, because she's described herself to me. I know vaguely what she's going to look like. But I have social anxiety, so I cannot look up and look around and keep an eye out for her. All I can do is stare at my phone in terror and go on Facebook and talk about how fucking lost I am. True story. It worried my parents. They ended up texting me to make sure that I was okay. So then she comes and she's like, there you are. And I'm like, oh my god, thank you. So then I'm walking with this stranger. I'm 20 minutes late for my fucking audition. And I'm trying to make conversation with her and not be a social anxiety mess. So we're walking, and we have to go up in this lift, and we go up in this lift with these two strange women, which this is not good. This is not good for my anxiety. I hate lifts and I hate strangers. This is my life. Then we walk down this really deserted corridor, and all I can think while we're walking in these corridors is I'm never gonna fucking find my way out of this building again ever. I'm gonna be lost in DIT forever. I'm gonna die here. So we go in, and the director's in there, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm 20 minutes late for your audition, and I have no idea what's going on. And I'm just like, blah, blah, word vomit everywhere. And then he gives me the script, and he's like, do you need to take a minute to relax? And I'm like, no, I'm 20 minutes late. To ask for, a minute to relax would be ludicrous. So I sit down. It's an acting audition, and I sit down. And I read it. I read it like it's a read-through, like it's a table run. There's no emotive expression of my body. I'm just talking, and all the while my head is like, you need to get up and fucking act, what are you doing? But my body's like, no, this has been a stressful enough situation already, I'm going to stay right here. So thankfully they asked me to read for a second character, which then I'm like, get off the table. So my body gets off the table and I do the thing, and then they explain to me the thing, and it's fine. And she says to me, I'll bring it back downstairs, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm not going to die in DIT. And we get out, and we're walking, and she meets a friend. She meets a friend on the way, and she introduces me to the friend, right? And I shake the girl's hand, and I say, it's lovely to meet you. But she is as uncomfortable as I am, and that makes me more uncomfortable. So it's like, okay, fine. So then we get outside, and she says to me, do you want me to walk you back to the car? And I'm like, I like to think that I am adult enough to find my way back. So she tries to give me directions back to the car, but she's giving me directions in the ones I haven't came. And I'm like, I need to go back the way I came, or else this is never going to work. So that's what I do. And then I get back to the car, and it's fine. I'm walking along the street, and she actually rings me when I get back to the car to make sure that I have gotten back to the car, which is so fucking embarrassing to have to, but however, it's fine, I got back to the car. But as I was walking, I can't walk down the street like a normal person because there's no music in. So I'm just laughing hysterically to myself, and people are staring because what am I doing? And then I try to cross the road, there's loads of cars coming. So I'm like, I'm going to keep walking, and the pressure of everything has just gotten to me, and I literally go, oh! In the middle of the street, and the poor man behind me was like, oh my god, And then I get back to the car, and Collie, my friend, brings me and says, are you okay? I've got loads of missed calls from you. And I'm like, wait till I tell you. Coincidentally, I did get a small part in that thing. So, I mean, it wasn't all. Maybe I'll tell you about my other terrible audition someday. But that was just a thing that happened in my life. I'm going back to YouTube now. Slán.